John Davidson here with SprayWorks Equipment Group. Let's get ready for another episode of Fix It Friday. Hello, I'm John Davidson with SprayWorks Equipment Group. On this week's episode of Fix It Friday, we're going to be unpacking the Graco Fusion AP gun, dismantling and reassembly. So let's get started on unpacking. All right, once you received your package, you're going to open it up. You're going to see this handy Fusion assembly card in here. It just goes over the basic instructions. It does highlight some of the critical parts, but mostly the operation and functioning of the gun. And next, you're going to see the complete gun assembly for your AP Fusion. Be wrapped up in a bag for you. Inside here, first thing you're going to notice is the instruction card, or the safety card. It just lists the hazards of the gun. Good to have a quick read. You take this apart and throw it in with your manuals. Next, you're going to see the manual. Good idea to make a copy of this and keep it in the rig. You can also do a digital copy. Next would be a declaration of compliance. Sometimes these are required at the factories you're working at. Okay, and the final element is going to be the tools and the accessory parts box. Another unpacking here. Air hose to connect from your foam hose to your gun. You're going to supply you with your first tube of grease and your for your grease gun. Also your first tube of Graco Fusion grease. And then lastly, your tools bag. And we can unpack that. You're going to see right off the bat, Graco's injection card. This is a card you want to keep with the rig and with the guys. Well, handy information in here. In the event that somebody would get injected with the spray, this is something you want to send to the hospital with them. Next, you'll find your gun wrench, the small screwdriver. Next, you'll see this block. This block is used for your flush pots. If you don't have a flush pot, of course, you can order a flush pot to go along with it, but Graco does supply the Fusion flush block with that. An extra screw, you want to put that in with your parts. They do put the drill bits that come from the mixing chamber that are in your gun, and you'll need to set these up with the pin vise they supply. It's a double-ended pin vise, so you can put a drill bit in each end, one for the side port of the chamber, and of course one for the nozzle. Again, we'll get into that later. So you have a variety of fittings in here. These two fittings are for reconfiguring the hose direction that comes into the hose block. A spare plug in the event you want to rearrange which direction your air comes in, and you can see that in the manual. And then these is your air valve and your air quick disconnect fitting used for coupling the hose to the gun quickly. Those are things that you can assemble onto your air hose. Okay, so when you do get your box, you'll notice here on the side, the part number will be listed on it, but then right below that, it says Fusion AP Gun Round 02. And so this gun comes equipped with this 02 mixing chamber. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the hose block from the gun. Now the gun should be ready to spray out of the box. But you're going to want to disconnect it from the gun in order to get it on your hose whip. So you want to be cautious. You got some O-rings here on the bottom of the gun. Go ahead and set the gun down. Now what you do want to do, and they should be closed when you get them, is take the gun wrench and just make sure that those valves are closed. Now you'll see that they put a brass fitting on, or the gold fitting on one side and the silver fitting on the other, the silver being the larger for the resin side, the smaller being for the ISO side. Helps you identify them throughout. And you'll notice on your hoses that your resin fitting is larger than the A fitting. Orifice size is the same, hose sizes are the same, just the fitting so you don't mix them up. So once you do that, go ahead and connect that to your whip, and then this block will be ready to go. Now for the dismantling process. First thing we want to do is identify a couple things on this gun. You'll see that there's some fittings on the top of it, and your gun wrench fits on those. This exposes a zerk fitting in order for you to grease the gun. This is an air valve fitting. This here will shut off the air purge coming out of the gun. And this one has the cap on it for your grease fitting. So you want to keep that cap on there, and that'll keep the overspray from building up on the fitting, not allowing your grease gun to properly fit on there. That exposes the fitting in order to grease the gun, primarily for service and at the end of the day. Now, this is all brand new, so there won't be flushing required for this process, but you would want to pre-flush the gun before you try to dismantle it when it's been in service. But first thing you can do is go ahead and pop off the air cap. There. Okay, next will be the cap. Take this off. You'll notice that there's a white O-ring on the inside of it. It's a plastic O-ring. It holds up quite well. Behind that cap is your check valve, side seals rather. And you got that screwdriver in the kit. Pull that out. A little greasy there. This houses your side seal and a spring, and there's a couple O-rings on this. They're also marked with an A on the end for the ISO side. The resin side isn't marked. Sometimes the side seal hangs up in there, but that's the side seal. Once you remove those side seals, again, you've got a groove here. Now these are your check valves and screens. That's where these are located. You'll notice that there is an O-ring on the end, and there's an O-ring for the bore, and as well as your spring. So you drop your air piston in, put your end cap on. You don't want to over tighten it. Just hand tight's good. And that should stay put. Make sure that you engage your safety. Drop your trigger stem in there. You do want to push that down in there just to make sure you get it locked in there good. Get proper seating of your spring in there. This piece you just want to take snug. Should be able to get spring back with the trigger arm. Just a little snug there. That's really it for the air motor side of things. Really what you're going to be servicing primarily is going to be the fluid housing, which that's all the parts that are in here. Again, the check valves and the screens, those will need serviced periodically, and then the side seal chambers as well. The mixing chamber is probably the most common thing that's going to get dirty. You can only drill it out so many times before you're going to need to replace it. There are gun cleaners and other methods at which to clean these, soaking them generally a day. So chambers are something you might want to keep a couple extra of just to get it through, but chambers should last multiples of sets. Primarily what you're going to be servicing is the head of the gun. This is where all the wetted parts go. Again, keep in mind that the parts are designated A for A side. The B's are not marked, so the ones that aren't marked would go into the B or the resin side. Some of the parts you're going to keep extras of is the screens. These can get crushed and damaged just through the cleaning process and use. So you want to keep some spare screens around. O-ring kits, full O-ring kit would help to replace that. You do not get those in with the initial gun purchase, but the last thing you want to do is be shut down over an O-ring or something simple as that. Next, of course, is the side chambers. The side seals, those we'll go through a cleaning process for those, so you understand that. And the chambers. We have gun cleaners and to soak the parts in that'll clean them, but they do take a little bit of time. So if you only got one gun, you're going to want to have some extra chambers in order to keep spraying while your dirty chambers are soaking for later use. Ideally, a thorough flush with the flush pot will clean the gun good enough that you can just reuse it. But in this case, we're going to just go ahead and service the gun after a flush. Screwdriver comes in your kit. Give you a chance, an opportunity to inspect your screen, making sure that that's clean and that your check valve is still under good adjustment. You'll take note that you're flush here with the check ball adjustment. Backing this out will allow you to remove the spring and the ball that sets in here. Not necessarily remove it during just a standard cleaning process, but you do want to make sure that that's just staying flush back there. Don't over tighten it, and certainly don't leave it out too far. This gives you an opportunity to inspect your O-rings, make sure that they don't have scars or chafing on them. Again, you should be able to reuse them over and over again, this O-ring as well. A sides typically dry out, B sides would swell, but good thorough flush, and this got good and clean. Screens are something you can soak overnight if they get too dirty, and usually just an air nozzle and a blowout is all you'll need to clean that, or you just simply replace it. When you're working around the gun cleaner, what you're going to want to do is disassemble these parts entirely, taking the O-rings off. I would mark my A-side O-rings and my B-side O-rings, or just simply plan on replacing them all together. So you can pop those out of the groove, the large one and the smaller one. To take the check balls apart, just unthread. Be cautious, you got a spring in the back of this, and then your ball sits inside there. So they're really tiny parts. Again, if it's not real dirty and the spring is actuating, you don't really need to take it apart to soak them. If things are really dirty, you can always go the extra mile and take it apart. But once they're together, pretty much everything just stays intact. So we'll take this, we'll just drop it in the drink, gun cleaner, set it for about an hour, come back, wipe those parts off, reverse the process, and reassemble the gun. And that'll be that's the extent of cleaning the gun.